Get your ears wrapped around the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast. All the scoop you need to know, from college basketball to the NBA and even March Madness. News of your rising stars, topics on and off the hardwood. This is the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast.
All right, guys, welcome to the GSMC Basketball Podcast. I'm your host on Mondays and Thursdays, Casey Foreman. Thank you for tuning in to today's episode. Welcome in. A whole lot to talk about. Again, with the season coming to a close a couple of weeks ago, we are now in the off season in basketball where we get, coaches getting signed, the changes in the front office, draft speculation, free agent speculation, all that going on, with the season coming to an end, all that going on in today's podcast. Again, welcome in. This podcast is brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. On my last podcast, on my last episode, if you guys had a chance to listen, I was all excited talking about it, how it was looking like, at least. Christmas Day basketball was making a return. It was looking like the official start of next season would be on or around Christmas Day, and we would get basketball on Christmas again. Something I always look forward to, something I'm guessing you guys and girls also are always looking forward to as well. It's something I think of when I think of Christmas. One of the few things I think of is hoops, is basketball on Christmas Day, sitting down with the family, watching some of the matchups I've been waiting for up until that point in the season. However, now, obviously, with last season being the longest in NBA history, now we're going to have a shorter off season, and we're still figuring out when next season will start. And that is what I want to talk about today. That is what I want to start out with today, I should say, the pushback from the players in the league on the NBA's proposed plan to start on or around Christmas Day. There has been, quote, significant pushback on the NBA's proposed plan. I want to discuss that, kind of let you guys know. We might want to, bring our standards, our expectations down, our hopes down a little bit, because we might not be having basketball on Christmas Day after all. I know it would be disappointing. Let's break it down, all the details will be coming first on this episode today. I also want to talk about Daryl Morey. The longtime GM of the Houston Rockets has found a new home. A couple of weeks after, parting ways with Houston, he is now signing with Philadelphia, the 76ers, to oversee all of their basketball operations. So I want to break that down. Silas, longtime assistant coach in the NBA, more recently the assistant coach to Rick Carlisle and the Dallas Mavericks. He has officially signed with Daryl's former home, former employer, the Houston Rockets. Silas is now is the next head coach of the Houston Rockets, inheriting James Harden, Russell Westbrook, and the roster that, yes, definitely came up short in this year's postseason. Either way, they found their next head coach, their next leader, and then at the end of the podcast today, I want to discuss Bradley Beal, his comments regarding some trade talks revolving him, the Washington Wizards, this year's NBA draft. A whole lot of things to talk about. Bradley Beal had some comments regarding trade talks. Like I said, a packed show for you guys today. Make sure you stick around until the end of the show. But like I said, let's start with the maybe no Christmas Day hoops, something that is very disappointing. Again, something I look forward to every year, year in and year out, sitting down with the family, after our big meal, and watching some of those great matchups, because we know Christmas Day matchups are some of the best games we see all year long. I'm honestly now wondering when will be the Christmas Day matchups. If we're not getting Christmas Day, when will we see these matchups we look forward to all year? That was the kind of the first thing that come to mind. Also, what am I going to do on Christmas? Am I going to have to talk to my family more? Am I going to have to, I don't even know. We'll maybe watch some more Christmas movies. We'll see. Either way, a whole lot to break down because, like I said, some significant pushback coming on the Christmas Day plans, on the plans proposed to the players. Again, after seeing the Christmas Day plans, the reports earlier from Woj, Brian Windhorst, I was super excited about that. However, we kind of have to come back down to earth here after significant reports, significant pushback on the December start. And we heard, I think it was this week, actually, earlier in the week, we heard Danny Green, Laker now champion, three-time champion, on a podcast. I can't remember now. There's so many different podcasts, right? He was on a podcast saying, I think about last week, he didn't know. He said, I don't know if I'm going to be there in a month. If the season starts in a month, and this was a couple of days ago, I think within the last week, he says, I don't know if I'm going to be there. If a lot of players are going to even be there and show up. And he said, same thing with my guy, LeBron James. I'm not sure if he will even show up. He said for the first month of the season, if it starts in December. So a big statement from Danny Green. I think that is what, at least a significant amount of players are thinking, at least the players not worried about their pockets, their pocketbooks, though the players with, the bigger contracts who have already made their money, I'm sure they're not quite worried about starting this season, about showing up on time. As far as the players who aren't, racking in the millions and millions of dollars, who haven't already made their money, still establishing, their way in the NBA. I'm not sure if they are taking part in Danny Green and LeBron and them saying, I probably won't be there for the first month if it starts in December. So I'm not quite sure who is saying that. I think it might be the bigger names, the star names, especially the guys who just got done playing, like the Lakers, Miami, Denver, Boston as well. So it is kind of I have a question, at least, as far as I'm questioning, at least as far as who is saying this. Where are these statements coming from? Is it the entire league? Is it simply the bigger names, the established guys? So that's my first question that comes to mind. And quite frankly, I completely understand. I want to start by saying this. I completely understand the pushback from the players. The season ended a couple of weeks ago. We just crowned our champion, the Los Angeles Lakers, like I said, a couple of weeks ago, and now we're talking about starting next season in a month, within 2 months or so. That's insane to think, because again, the draft is less than a month away, is a few weeks away, might I add, and then free agency a couple of days after that. So yes, last season just ended, and I completely understand teams like Miami, LA, Denver, Boston saying, we basically just started our off season. We just started looking at this year's draft, just started looking at this year's free agency, even though we all know free agency starts, it's always going on. Conversations are always taking place. Messages are always going back and forth. Free agency is always transpiring. It is not starting on the official night that it begins. That's why we see deals happening right as free agency starts, because they have already made the deal. They already talked the plans through. So yes, I know people know what they're doing in this year's off season in free agency, but looking at the dates, the start date, the end date, they can definitely go out there and say, hey, our off season just started. The draft is November 18th, 3 weeks away, and then you want to start the NBA season 1 month after the draft? less than a month after free agency, where we just signed these players. You want us to go into camp a week after? Because they said camps could be starting December 1st. So with the draft being December or November 18th, free agency a couple of days afterwards, and then training camps possibly starting on December 1st, they are getting literally 2 weeks to deal with their draft picks, their free agency moves, and then to start their camp, start preparing, start the season, not even start preparing, start the season. 2 weeks after you make your draft pick, 2 weeks after, a week after you made a free agency move, when your roster is just coming into place. So I completely understand the teams, the significant pushback taking place, because again, free agency will take place just days after the November 18th draft. It seems like the off season for these teams just started. It takes weeks on its own at times for free agents to come to a decision, for teams to come to a decision. So obviously, we know free agency has been going on this entire time. As soon as the basketball stopped dribbling, as soon as that final horn blew, free agency basically started, if not before then. These players were seeing each other in the bubble day in, day out. So these conversations are taking place now before the official start. So again, it's not like they're only getting a week. I know that stuff is going on right now, obviously, but from their point of view, they are only getting a week. From the rules point of view, they are only getting a handful, a short amount of time to make their decisions before starting next season. As a fan, I what's not to want? What's not to love this? We just got done with an NBA season. We just crowned our champion, the Los Angeles Lakers. In a few weeks, in a couple of months, I should say, in a couple of months, we're going to have the start of next season already. Within 2 months, we're going to start the next season and have a draft, have free agency, all of that. So as a fan, I love it. I want nothing more for them to start on December 1st and for games to take place on December 22nd and to have Christmas Day hoops again. That's all I want as a fan, and I'm guessing that's all you guys want as well. But as, I don't want to brag here, but as an intelligent, as a educator of the game, as a basketball intelligent, as I like to call myself, again, not to brag or anything like that, but it seems rushed. Okay, analyzing everything as a basketball podcaster, all this stuff, it seems rushed. In my professional opinion, it seems they're throwing this stuff together. And it seems like, and obviously we know why they're so eager to start next season. But again, as a fan, I want nothing more for this to happen. As an intelligent, as a basketball podcast, as I don't even know what to call as an analyst, possibly I could call myself now. I don't know if I have the ranking of that quite yet. Either way, when I look at it from that point of view, it seems rushed. It seems like teams are not going to be able to get everything done in time to start next season. But again, that's just a small amount of teams like LA, Miami, Denver, Boston, who just started their off season, and then there's teams like Chicago, Golden State, Minnesota. Even teams like Phoenix, the Grizzlies, the New Orleans, who went to the bubble and got sent home early, they've had, quite a bit of time to figure out their offseason. They've had an offseason for the most part. Especially teams like Golden State, teams like Chicago and Minnesota, who didn't even go to the Orlando bubble. They've been in an off season since March, I think. So they've had a longer off season than they're used to. They are ready. They are eager to get back on the court. So there are two sides here. It does seem a little bit rushed. As a fan, I'm excited for it. But we all know why the league is rushing to start this season up again so quickly. It's because of the 10% of revenue they lost in this past season due to the coronavirus pandemic, due to the, I know they made a great deal of money in the bubble, but they still lost a great deal of money in the Orlando bubble. So due to them losing 10% of their revenue in the 2019-2020 season, due to them losing that much money, 10% of your revenue. That is a chunk coming from the NBA. I know the effects of that going forward, we will see. I know this season maybe not too many effects, but going forward, the salary cap, the player owner agreement definitely will have to be, the CBA will have to be looked at again. So things will be affected going forward because of the 10% loss of revenue. They also made $1.5 billion from the Orlando bubble, but had to spend a total in $190 million to get the bubble up and running, and in order for them to crown a champion, to keep it running, they spent almost $200 million on the bubble, but racked in $1.5 billion from it. So yes, they racked in a whole bunch. They also spent a whole bunch and lost 10% of the revenue. The whole China thing, they lost $200 million with the whole China agreement at the beginning of the year. So yes, this year has not been kind on the NBA. They've been nothing but willing to change, I should say, not stuck in their way, willing to change, and that's been great to see, quite honestly. I'm going to go ahead and take a quick break. When I come back, I'll finish out this segment and start discussing Daryl Morey with the Philadelphia 76ers. A quick break, and then we will come back on this topic. What will we do next season? When will next year start for the NBA? I will be right back.
Are you looking for the very best NFL and college football podcast? Then check out the GSMC Football Podcast. Get the latest football news both on and off the field. From the NFL Draft to trades to the rumor mill to the NFL Combines, they got you covered. That's GSMCpodcast.com/football-podcast. Get updates on college rivalries, game day insights, and much, much more. It's football talk the way you want it. This show eats, sleeps, and breathes football. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
All right, welcome back, everybody. Like I've been discussing, the proposed plan for next season for the NBA, the significant pushback that has gone on. Like I just got done discussing, we know why the league is so eager to get next season rolling. It's because of the 10% of revenue they lost last season. So we know why they're starting. They want to start so soon. They made $1.5 billion from the bubble, but had to spend $200 million on it. Lost $200 million from the whole China dispute. So it has not been a kind year on the NBA, like I've been saying. And I'm not a big math guy. I'll let you guys figure out all of those numbers. I did get an A in statistics a couple of years ago. That's about all I can say, the most I can brag talking about math. I'll let you guys figure out the details as far as, the revenue loss and the amount they actually made from this past year. Either way, they lost money. They lost money, and a Christmas Day start is sure to bring viewers and revenue. So that's definitely why we're pushing to see a Christmas Day start. They get the classic, Christmas Santa Coke commercial, a couple of the last New Year's Eve commercials. They get some last holiday shopping deals commercials in. So they get revenue, they get viewers. Everyone is going to watch on Christmas Day. There's no football on Christmas. Maybe on Christmas, but still on Christmas Day, what people, like I said, tend to look forward to after the big meal with the family, opening gifts and such, dealing with your religious acts, whatever you tend to do on Christmas Day, whatever you celebrate. After those things take place, I think a majority of people flip on the TV, either a Christmas movie or NBA basketball is on TV. And like I said earlier, some of the best matchups we see all season usually take place on Christmas Day. So hopefully we still get those matchups we look forward to every year. And like I said, Christmas Day, those matchups, those commercials, all that equals viewers, that equals revenue. So, of course, they're looking to start sooner than later. They're trying to make their money, okay? Obviously, and you can't blame them. It's been a rough year for them. They've been persistent. They've changed. They've been willing to change. And we were able to crown a champion when at one point it was looking like that was the farthest thing from our minds. It was looking like that was not going to be the case whatsoever. We crowned our champion. The Orlando bubble was a complete success, so I have nothing but faith in the NBA and in Adam Silver going forward. But let's cut him a little bit of a break here. Let's give him a little bit of a break. They lost a great deal of money. It's been a tough year. It has been for all of us. Like we know, it's been a tough year for all of us, but it's been especially tough on the NBA. And we know how big the NBA is to the economy, the NFL. All these major sports leagues are huge to the economy. You want to keep them rolling. You want to keep the revenue pumping in them. Also, one more interesting factor that comes into play, like I said, significant pushback from the players. Obviously, the NBA are the ones who proposed the plan to start so early. So it's kind of two different sides here, as you would expect. You got the players on one side wanting to push back the start date, and then you got the organizations, the league itself, and the broadcast companies. The companies that broadcast the games like ESPN, ABC. You got them pushing it for the early start date because excuse me, they've lost money as well. They're used to playing these games consistently. At this point in time, the NBA season should be starting by end October. The NBA season should be taking place already. The ESPN should be having games, League Pass, ABC, all these broadcasting companies. They should, television companies, they should be having these games. They should be making money off of these games already. Yet they are not. They're going to have to wait until December, maybe even January. So now there are two sides, like I said, the players versus the broadcast companies, and we're going to see how much power both sides have eventually when the official start date is announced. If it's in December, we know, hey, those broadcast companies, ESPN, ABC, they pulled their weight and said, no. Okay, we know what you guys do. We are starting. We need the revenue. And if we see them pushing back until January, end of January, MLK weekend, maybe we're seeing the players having more of the power in this agreement, or perhaps we're going to be seeing the players have to give up some things in order to get the later start date that they do want. Again, who is wanting the later start date? Is it simply the players and the teams that just got done playing, like LA, Miami, Denver, Boston? Is it all the players, the big name players, the established players? Is it also the players still looking to make their bag, still looking to make their money, still looking to establish themselves? Who is saying this? I think it's more one side, more of the bigger names, established guys. I feel like if you took a poll and the lower named players, the lesser recognized players will want to play early, and I especially think that would be the case for the teams like Golden State, for Boston, or for Chicago, who haven't played since March. Okay, so we're going to see who has the power, who has the cards, right? The players want to start around MLK weekend. The broadcast companies obviously want to start around Christmas Day, get their revenue pumping. Like I said earlier, the fan in me loves this whole plan to start as soon as possible. The fan in me wants basketball as soon as possible, but I know the somewhat analyst in me knows that this would be a rushed off season, and I do not want that. I want them to take their time, have the proper amount of time that they need, so we see the best result, the best basketball possible when we eventually reach that official start date. Okay, the January start date would give teams, more time with off-season decisions, but they gotta be done. Let's take this into consideration. The season has got to be done before the Olympics next year, the Tokyo Olympics that start in July 23rd. The Olympics are set to kick off next year. So yes, okay, the season must be done. The season must be over by Tokyo, by July 23rd. In order for that to take place, they might have to start in December. So we'll see what the players give up. We'll see what the broadcast companies do. We'll see how the negotiations take place. I'll make sure to keep you guys posted as soon as we know any information. Like I said earlier, the fan in me is wanting basketball as soon as possible, but ultimately I want the best basketball possible. I want the best result possible on the court, and if that means we postpone the season until MLK weekend, until the end of January, we do that, and we get the best season possible. If that means we have less games, whatever it means, whatever it takes to get done by the Olympics, to have a champion next year, I have nothing but faith in Adam Silver and the NBA to get it done. What do you guys think? Do you think the players are on the wrong here? Do you think the broadcast companies and the league is in the wrong for wanting to push the players back so soon? What do you guys think? No matter what Adam Silver has said, he wants to give the players about 2 months of preparation before the season. The clock is ticking. We will see. I think it'll be sooner rather than later. We see a decision getting made. Like I said, though, after this, I now want to discuss. Let's pivot and transition to a recent signing that has taken place. Daryl Morey has officially signed with the Philadelphia 76ers. I'm almost out of time on this segment here. Got a couple of more minutes. Let's give a quick intro to this. So Daryl Morey has signed with the Philadelphia 76ers just weeks after parting ways with his longtime employer in Houston. And Philly continues to add to their coaching staff and continues to add to their front office. Obviously, a couple of weeks or so ago, they go and hire Doc Rivers from the Los Angeles Clippers, and we know a disappointing end of the season for them. He moves after failing to reach the Western Conference not even one time. So he moves, they part ways, and he signs with Philadelphia. Now, Sam Cassell, also a prior assistant to Doc in Los Angeles, it's looking like Sam Cassell is following Doc from Los Angeles to Philadelphia to be a part of his staff. Like I said, Daryl Morey will now be the head of basketball operations, a step up. I think he was simply... Was he the head of operations in Houston? So I think he had a big role in Houston. He might even have a bigger role here in Philadelphia. I know they're planning on keeping their guy in Elton Brand. Philadelphia they're planning on keeping their GM in Elton Brand for some reason. Quite frankly, I'm not sure why they would look to keep Elton. Maybe now bringing in Daryl is a way of moving him out of the organization. I'm not quite sure. Because of the moves Elton has made in prior years, it definitely makes sense for them to go out and get a veteran guy like Daryl Morey to oversee some of the moves Elton is making. Because, just to name some moves that Elton has made, some things Elton Brand has done for Philadelphia. Yes, he acquired J.J. Redick, Jimmy Butler, Tobias Harris. He did all of those things. Dario Saric, I think he was a part of drafting him as well. So yes, he was a part of some very good moves and some very good things, but he also lost Jimmy Butler. Okay, he lost Jimmy Butler. He lost J.J. Redick. He traded Dario Saric. He lost Robert Covington. Marco Bellinelli, the three-point sniper. So he lost all of those shooters after acquiring them. And then he went on to sign and extend players and signed to max contracts players like Tobias Harris and Al Horford. So he maxes out Horford and Tobias Harris, but loses J.J. Redick and Jimmy Butler huge pieces for them, and I think now we see how big of a role J.J. Redick and Jimmy Butler both were in that organization. You honestly have to say good for them to getting out while they could, because Jimmy said as soon as he left, the problem there was leadership. He didn't know who the leader was, who was in charge, who do I talk to. Now perhaps with the addition of Doc Rivers, an established, hopefully a veteran leader in this league, I think he somewhat is, and we'll see maybe his leadership skills being questioned after the whole Clipper meltdown. Either way, I think Doc was a leadership move. Daryl Morey as well. Hopefully they have some other, they acquire some other pieces to get into that leadership role, because that is a question in that organization, in that locker room for sure. So they plan on keeping Elton Brand at that GM position, even though he's made moves like losing Jimmy Butler, losing J.J. Redick, and again maxing out Tobias Harris and Al Horford. Two very questionable moves there, for sure, by Elton Brand. Again, the losing J.J. Redick, one of the best shooters in the league, who was phenomenal for you, averaged 15 to 17 points for you. And then Jimmy Butler, who was phenomenal on both ends, had some great late game plays. Like I said, both are tough, on both ends of the floor. Is definitely a leader. We know the leadership factor was questioned for Butler. That argument has now been put to bed after leading the Miami Heat to the NBA Finals. So he lets those two guys go, extends two guys which are too easily, two questionable moves. So maybe the addition of Daryl Morey here is to simply watch the moves being made by Elton Brand, and maybe eventually get Elton out of the organization. Either way, I'm going to take a quick break. When I come back, more on the Daryl Morey hire, also more on the Rockets' decision to hire Steven Silas. Quick break. I will be right back.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA, from the UFC to extreme cage fighting. They got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
All right, guys, welcome back. Like I've been discussing, let's continue to talk about Daryl Morey, how he has officially signed with the Philadelphia 76ers. Like I said before the break, they still plan on keeping Elton Brand around. But maybe, just maybe, Daryl Morey, who definitely has made some questionable moves himself in his career. The whole Clint Capella trade, trading Chris Paul for Russell Westbrook. Yes, there have been a few moves that people, Dwight Howard, there have been a few moves that people have questioned for sure. But maybe Morey coming here will now be overseeing Brand's decisions. And quite frankly, maybe that will help your organization head in a better path, heading into a path, hopefully, that leads to competing for titles, which obviously they are not doing right now, getting beat in the second round 2 years ago, and then this past year, obviously, getting swept by Boston in the first round. So hopefully the addition of Morey can oversee the moves of Brand. So hopefully they can be somewhat of a duo, or perhaps the addition of Morey is to get Brand out of that front office. Apparently, I didn't know this, actually, reading a couple of articles after I saw the addition, the sign. Apparently, Daryl Morey had the chance to sign with Philadelphia 2 years ago. Was it two or 3 years ago? Instead decided to extend the contract with Houston, decided to take 2 more chances at it before ultimately, like I said, parting ways. Him and Mike D'Antoni obviously parting ways with that Houston organization. But he had the chance to go to Philadelphia a couple of years ago, and I now wonder how different both teams, the Houston Rockets or the Philadelphia 76ers, I wonder how different both those teams might be looking now if that move was made 2 years ago in comparison to being made now. Again, though, after the disappointing exit, disappointing end to their season in the Orlando bubble, Morey in Houston, they split ways, and then in Houston and Mike D'Antoni obviously split ways. After this, I want to discuss Houston's decision to hire Stephen Silas, maybe that's how you say it, Stephen Silas. So that is coming up after this. Stick around after the break. But like I said, Houston decides to split ways with both their GM and their head coach. Mike D'Antoni's still looking for a job, but I had no idea that Morey had the decision to leave Houston a couple of years ago. He stays faithful, stays there, continues to try to win championships. Obviously, the multiple disappointing ends to the seasons now. They part ways, like I said. But apparently as well, I didn't know this also. Doing my research, it turns out Morey and Doc Rivers apparently have a long history and a strong relationship. I had no idea. I'm trying to think. Morey's been in Houston for so long. Doc was in Boston, and then obviously with LA, and now with Philadelphia. I'm trying to think where their paths might have crossed. Not quite sure where they might have. I'm guessing just a relationship, both of them being in the league for such a long amount of time. They've naturally have built a relationship, a repartee, a long history, a strong relationship. So that's good to hear. That is exactly what you want to hear from your front office and your coaching staff. That's the relationship you want. You want them to be close, be tight, have a long history together. I just don't want the friendship, the quote, strong friendship, to interfere with basketball decisions. We know if that's your guy, if that's your friend, you tend to give him more chances than if it was a guy you're not a fan of. So I just hope the friendship does not interfere with basketball decisions. Otherwise, I'm super happy to hear that they have a strong and long relationship, a long history together. That's exactly what you want from your front office and your coaching staff. Hopefully, the trust is built in there as well from the long relationship. We will see if that comes into play or interferes with the whole basketball decision. But overall, looking at this move, all things taken into consideration, I think this is a good move by Philadelphia. They're adding a smart veteran guy to a somewhat unproven group in the front office. Elton Brand, a former player, unproven. As far as whatever else they have in the front office, I couldn't tell you. So adding Daryl Morey, a guy who has been there, done that, has been in the league since McGrady and Yao Ming. Okay, that's how long he's been with the Rockets. So adding a veteran, a smart guy, also a big analytical guy. So I think overall adding him to an unproven group in Philadelphia is a smart move. He was and he is due a great deal amount of credit for the James Harden era, orchestrating the deal for him from OKC. And he was also there, like I said earlier, in the McGrady Yao Ming days. So he was in Houston for a great deal of time. For the most part, they were always competing, always relevant while he was there. So he is definitely due credit for the James Harden era. I don't know if he's, obviously James had multiple coaches and what James did, but James is the other biggest part. It's James and Morey as far as the James Harden era, what I think of as at least who are due credit, and Mike D'Antoni as well. But for the most part, it's James and then Morey for making the moves to get him there. So give him credit where credit is due. Like I said, he was basically relevant. They basically competed for his entire time there, entire tenure there, and perhaps he can bring his winning culture and analytics. I don't know if it's winning analytics, quite frankly, but maybe he can bring the winning culture and the analytics to Philadelphia and help them build a contender around the stars in Embiid and Simmons. My other question, now I know I had a question earlier, my other question for this hire, about this hire, is do they have enough, do they have enough to compete for championships? And I think ultimately, yes, they do. When you have two all-stars like Embiid, like Simmons, we saw this year with the Lakers, they were led by their two stars. It was a two-man band, and then, a bunch of guys after that. KCP stepped up. Rondo played fantastic. You don't want to undersell or undervalue what they did, but for the most part, it was a two-man band, and that is exactly what it could be in Philadelphia. But then they have players like Tobias Harris, who's a third established guy, definitely. Josh Richardson. So that they have other players. It's not just a two-man band here. So then with the players that they have, with the lack of success, you then got to think, you then got to question, when will the first move be made? Daryl Morey, he likes shooters. He likes three-point shooting, and Philly needs shooters, which they don't have. So with Morey liking shooters, Philly lacking so, perhaps he can do something with the Al Horford contract, which, like I said earlier, is a terrible contract. So maybe he can do something with that, put some pieces around Embiid, around Simmons. He made a lot of moves, as we know, a lot of moves with the Rockets, with Houston, and I honestly expect the same thing with Philadelphia. Perhaps that's why they decided to bring him in, so he could make the moves that they need. So I have nothing but faith in him to make those moves. My final thought, Morey is definitely capable of finding and getting the pieces to complement Embiid and Simmons, and he's also capable, if it comes down to it, to moving off. He's capable of moving off one of the two stars and getting the most possible for it. We saw him trading Chris Paul, Russell Westbrook. So he's made these big trades, getting James Harden. So he's made these big trades before. He's definitely capable of doing so. So he can definitely put the pieces around those guys. And if he needs to, I think he's definitely capable of moving off one of those two guys. But right now, it seems now the only place to put the blame, in Philadelphia is now those two stars in Embiid and Simmons. You got a new coach, new coaching staff, new front office, or at least a new head of basketball operations here. Hopefully a new voice in the locker room with Doc Rivers, Sam Cassell. So the coaching staff, hopefully those problems have been solved. So the only place now to point the finger, to put the blame, is on those two stars. And we will see if that team, the Philadelphia 76ers, with the addition of Doc Rivers and Daryl Morey, whatever changes are coming soon, we will see if they can get out of the first round next year and start to compete for championships with two names like you do have on your roster, Embiid and Simmons. Expectation has got to be postseason, if not Eastern Conference final. With the talent you have on the roster, the coaching staff you have now, expectations are through the roof. They're going up and up and up and up. Like I said, not much else, not many other places to look besides those two players. We'll see if they can get it done, start competing at a higher rate, and get out of the first or the second round. I'm interested to see, as well as this move and the next move I want to discuss, the Rockets hiring Stephen Silas. I'm very interested to see what you guys think. Leave me a voice message or a comment or review on what you guys think. I'm going to go ahead and take a quick break. When I come back, discussing the Rockets hiring Stephen Silas. What was that move? Somewhat of an unproven hire. And then at the end of the show, Bradley Beal's comments regarding trade talks revolving himself, the Washington Wizards. What did Bradley have to say? All of that is coming up next. Don't go anywhere.
Check out the show built around the women of MMA. From the UFC to the extreme cage fighting, we got the fights covered.
Listen.
It's the Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast. The latest news of upcoming fights, discussions of previous matches. Join us as we talk to and about the biggest names in women's mixed martial arts, past, present, and future. When it's the women's fight game, you know where to listen to. The Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast.
All right, everybody, welcome back. Welcome to my final portion of the show, my final section of the show, as I should say. A couple of things I want to touch on in this final section. The Rockets obviously decided to hire longtime assistant coach Stephen Silas, son of Paul Silas. Like I said, he is now the official head coach of the Houston Rockets. After parting ways with Daryl Morey and Mike D'Antoni, it was time for a rebuild of the front office and the coaching staff. They got their guy in the front office, and now with Stephen Silas, they seemingly have their guy for their coaching staff. They hire a veteran assistant coach who's been in the league for decades. He's been an assistant, not necessarily a head coach yet, but he's been coaching in the NBA, in the league for decades now. He spent time in Charlotte, in Cleveland under his father, Paul Silas, who was a coach. I think he was a player as well. Either way, he spent time in Charlotte and Cleveland under his father, Paul Silas. Then moves on to Washington, works as a scout for Washington for a year or so, moves on to Golden State, is an assistant in Golden State, and most recently, he has been on the Dallas Mavericks coaching staff as an assistant to Rick Carlisle. To be honest, to be 100% honest with you guys, I don't know a whole lot about this guy. Besides the couple of articles I read, as soon as I saw the hire, quite frankly, as soon as I saw the hire, I was like, who? Who got hired? I've heard the name before, from prior hiring, and just from just watching basketball in general, being a viewer of the game. I've heard the name before, Silas, possibly because of his father, Paul Silas, as well. That has to do with it as well. But to be honest, I don't know much about this hire, much about this guy in Silas. Besides the things I read, like I said, in the couple of articles I read. To be honest, I kind of like the idea of a fresh face in Houston for the Rockets. In the NBA, there seems to be a group of coaches that circles in and out. They get fired here, they move on here, they simply move on and find another head coach. They find another assistant coaching job. So I think there's kind of a pool of coaches that tend to kind of get cycled around, move from place to place, or organization to organization. So it's nice to see a new face, a fresh face, because we don't really see that more often than not. Maybe this is, like I said, maybe this is exactly what Houston needs: a new person, a new face, a new game plan, a new system. They have a new front office. Like I said, now with the new coaching staff, they're also surrounding the new head coach. Like I said, this is his first time being a head coach. They're surrounding the first-time head coach with veteran former head coaches on his staff. Nate McMillan, I think he was on the Pacers at one point, was the coach of the Pacers. Jeff Hornacek, I think he was on the Trailblazers, the Knicks. So both Jeff and Nate will be going to help the first-time head coach in Steven in Houston. So I love that move there, surrounding the first-time coach with veteran guys who have been there and done that before. I'm super excited to see what Steven can do in Houston with the group of guys he has. I'm excited to see the approach he takes. Will he try to adapt and continue on and evolve the small ball that they have there, or will he take the new approach, add some size, some depth to that roster? Because Mike D'Antoni as well only goes 7 guys deep for the most part, so will we see some more depth and size added to the roster? Either way, super excited to see what he can do with the 2 former MVPs. Can this new coach figure it out? We will see them continue. Will we continue to see the small ball, or will he implement some size? Either way, it's safe to say his job is pretty much safe for the foreseeable future for Houston. The only place similar to Philadelphia now, the only place to really point the finger to put the blame on are the 2 stars. You got rid of the front office, you got rid of the coaching staff, you got new guys, fresh faces, fresh systems in there now. So now the only place to look has got to be the players. Harden and Russ, if they weren't already, are now in the hot seat. Like I said, new coach, new system, hopefully some small tweaks to the roster, adding some size. But will we see the same result for these 2 former MVPs? Will we see disappointment in the postseason after great things in the regular season? So was coaching to blame for the meltdowns? Was it simply the players? We will find out this upcoming season for Houston, for James Harden and Russell Westbrook. Like I said, I think we will be finding out sooner rather than later. Again, if we see the same result from these 2, expect even more changes in Houston. Okay, what else can you do? You already changed the front office. You already changed the entire coaching staff. You can change everything else besides your 2 stars, but ultimately, I don't think there's anywhere else to look. I like the move overall. Expect, however, I have 2 things, 2 possible thoughts here, and it's kind of easy. I think you're going to say, well, duh, but here, I'm going to say it anyway. Expect either a possible slow start for Houston with the new system, the new game plan. If we do see a possible slow start here, it might just be because the players are adapting. It might be because the players are the issue, or if we don't see a slow start, we could see a super hot start. They get out of the gates flying red hot, and then we see, hey, maybe coaching was the biggest issue on this roster. So I think we will find out, again, sooner rather than later, what the biggest issue here is in Houston. They cleared out the front office. They cleared out the coaching staff. It is now up to James Harden, Russell Westbrook, and now Stephen Silas to figure it out. And if we don't, again, expect even more changes to come for Houston and that Rocket franchise. Expect either a possible slow start while they adapt to the system, or if we see a popping, a hot start right out of the gate, I think then we might be able to say and conclude, hey, Mike D'Antoni, the system, the coaching, that might have been the biggest problem in Houston. Okay, so yes, Houston has problems. Philadelphia has problems. Hopefully they're figuring all this stuff out. Another team that has problems. What about the Washington Wizards? Okay, the Washington Wizards with a star in Bradley Beal, a star in John Wall, who's been injured for years now. It's been 3 years, I think, since John Wall has played a game, yet he's raked up like 40, 50, 60 million by playing like 30 games maybe over the past 3 years. So they've been injured. They haven't had their roster at full strength. They've had issues. Now Bradley Beal, like I said, the shining star in Washington, he is in the news, he is in the media with some comments regarding trade talks. Like I said, Bradley Beal, the one-man band, the one-man show in Washington until John Wall is back, at least. I'm very interested to see what that duo, what that tandem can look like at full strength, both in the peaks of their career. I don't know if John is anymore with those injuries. I saw some highlight videos of him playing the other day, however, with the Brooklyn Nets. I think KD, Kyrie, Karis LeVert, he was playing with them and was looking pretty good, might I add, being guarded by NBA players, blowing by them. It seems like he still has the speed, was knocking down some outside jumpers as well. So for the most part, hopefully John Wall is healthy, can come back and be the same player he was before the multiple major injuries he has sustained that has occurred. So I'm very interested to see what that tandem looks like. But as of now, it is a one-man band in Washington for Bradley Beal. And like I said, he is in the new. He has been, quite frankly, in the news and media recently with his performance this past year. Being snubbed from the All-Star team, averaging 35-5. More people than ever are suggesting a trade would be the best thing possible for Beal and for the Wizards going forward. You guys should simply start on the rebuild you've been pushing off for years. Trade Beal, get some picks, get some future assets in return, and do the same thing with John Wall. But quite frankly, in my opinion, I say you put that on hold for 1 year. If John is healthy, you put that tandem together, you put that duo together and see what they can do in the Eastern Conference. We know the Eastern Conference is up for grabs. So in my opinion, you put that tandem together for 1 year, healthy at least. If it looks promising, you don't blow it up whatsoever, but you at least try it for 1 full year. If they can stay healthy, you try it and see what the outcome is. But since John has been injured, has not been on the court, it's been a one-man band. Yes, people are obviously suggesting Bradley is wasting his career. He's having the best stats, the best games of his life, losing games. He's losing games that he should win. If he was on a contending team, on a better team with more around him, more than likely he would be winning more games. He would be getting the recognition he deserves, perhaps making an all-star team, perhaps making an all-NBA team. So maybe that's the biggest issue, that's the biggest reason people want to see a Bradley Beal trade, simply to get him on a bigger market team, on a contending team, so maybe he gets the recognition he deserves. And honestly, he sees the rumors himself. That's what the comments were. He sees the rumors, and this is exactly what he had to say about it. To quote Bradley Beal regarding the trade talks, quote, "Teams are trying. A lot of them are calling. A lot. Inquiring and putting packages together." Okay, they're putting packages together, trying to see if they can get me. This is no secret. That is no secret whatsoever. So basically, Wall is saying, yeah, lots of teams are calling. Lots of teams want me. They're inquiring. They're trying to see what it takes to get me on their team. He knows it. He sees it. Apparently, a lot of teams do as well. So I'm honestly super happy to hear that a lot of teams are interested in Bradley Beal. Rightfully so. They should be interested. A great player. Again, a career year last year for him. 35-5. Still gets snubbed from the All-Star team, from the All-NBA team. So perhaps going to this big city, bigger market, a contending team will in fact get him the recognition he deserves. Am I surprised, though? Am I surprised all these teams are wanting to trade for him? Hell no, I'm not surprised all these teams are doing this. Like I said, he averaged 35-5 last year. He 100% as of now, with John Wall being injured, with that roster being constructed the way it is, as of now, yes, he needs to get out of Washington. I would love to see a package being put together to get him out of Washington, away from the Washington Wizards. But then the question arises, who has the best package? Do they even want to move off of him right now before trying him again with John Wall? As far as who has the best packages go, Golden State comes to mind with the number 2 pick, with Wiggins, perhaps with the $17 million trade exception, some young pieces like Pascal. So, yes, Golden State comes to mind for sure. The Lakers have also, they maybe have put themselves out there in the rumors. I'm not quite sure what kind of package they would have. I don't even know if they would be able to compete with teams like Golden State, and another team I'm about to mention, but the Lakers have been mentioned as well. They're out there in the rumor mill. Maybe it's delusional Laker fans just saying, yeah, we're going to get Bradley Beal for Kyle Kuzma. We'll see. Unless the Wizards are much higher on Kuzma than I am, I don't necessarily see that happening. Another team I see being in the run for Bradley Beal, the Miami Heat. I think he'd be a perfect fit, a two-way player. I think he would buy into the culture. They need scoring. They need a guy to go create his own offense, and that's exactly what Bradley Beal has been doing and can do. He would be a perfect fit in Miami. So Miami, we've heard Miami, Golden State, the Lakers, even the Bucks have been thrown out there. Not sure what they could do to get him. Philadelphia's been thrown out there. A couple other teams as well, but so yes, there are teams out there, there are packages out there. Miami could also just simply wait for him to be a free agent next season and sign him with the cap space that they do have. So Miami has options, Washington has options as well. I also want to see the whole Beal and Wall tandem together, the duo together at full strength. Can they do some damage? Can they compete in that Eastern Conference? I want to see that, so I would give it at least one more year if Wall is healthy. I want to put that duo together and again see what they can do in the Eastern Conference. But that Eastern Conference is doing nothing but improving. The Wizards, like I said, are improving. The 76ers, hopefully the Nets are going to be back. The Celtics continue to improve year by year. Miami's not going anywhere. Milwaukee. So the East is improving. I'm not quite sure who has the best trade package. Either way, you try it out one more time with Beal and Wall, and then you get him out of there. If you don't get the success, if you don't get the glimpses that you're wanting to see, you make a move and you start the rebuild and you get as much as you can from these two players that are in their primes, at least Beal in the prime of his career, and you get the very most you can. I would love to see Bradley Beal and John Wall thrive and succeed in Washington. However, I fear that will not be the case, and the case will be sooner rather than later. We will see both of them in different uniforms. I would love to know what you guys think about this. Does Bradley Beal need to get out of Washington? Should he stay there for the rest of his career, be a career Washington Wizards guy? Let me know what you guys think. A very interesting topic here. No matter what, I think Washington gives it one more chance. Put that tandem together. See what they can do in that Eastern Conference. That's going to be it, though, guys, for the GSMC Basketball Podcast. Thank you all for the continued support. Go check us out on social media, on Facebook, on Twitter. Go check us out on whatever platform you're listening on. Please go leave us a comment or review to let us know how we are doing. We would 100% completely appreciate that. So please leave me a comment or review. Check us out on social media, like Twitter and Facebook. This is my last podcast of the week. Check out Bryce, check out our football podcast over the weekend. As for me, though, here at the GSMC Basketball Podcast, I'll see you guys on Monday.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.